start by just giving you a little background on how I got to choosing this particular psalm. Last time I talked about a psalm, we're going to talk about another one today. First, I went looking for the psalm for the lectionary, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is kind of boring. I don't know if we're going to get much discussion out of that. But at the time, I was reeling from, as some of you probably also were, about all the stuff happening in Minneapolis and ICE and just general injustice, around us, and frustration and emotion. And so I decided, well, I'm gonna ask the team here what's the reading they're gonna read here in the service, and somebody, Chelsea said, oh yeah, we're gonna do Psalm 35. And I said, Psalm 35, okay. So I go looking it up, looking past through some of my old music, because I used to sing the Psalms in the Catholic Church a lot, and nothing. We never do this psalm. And it's not in the lectionary that we use here either. And one of the reasons it's not in there, this is what it says on the web, is that it's an imprecatory psalm, which means it starts out with curses and calling for vengeance, kind of, and I guess maybe some of the church leaders didn't want to put that in the regular rotation. But it doesn't just have that in it, it's got other things in it too. It's got some praise, it's got some lament, it's got some things that are kind of messianic, speaking about the Messiah. So anyway, when you hear it, I was just kind of taken aback when I first read it, with the state of mind I was in 3 weeks ago, how much it helped me, and it was appropriate. And I think maybe you'll find this, connect with it as I did. So let me start by, let's see, I'm going to pass these out. It's double-sided, and I think it might be a little short on copies, so share if you can. So this is a printed copy of the psalm as it's going to be chanted here in a moment. We'll listen to it chant. But I'm just going to kind of give you an outline before we listen to it. So in Psalm 35, David called on God to thwart and humiliate his enemies. These were malicious people who had no credible case against David, but were doing everything they could to ruin him. These people were constantly setting traps for David, trying to snare him in some wrongdoing or ill-spoken word. Sounds like politics today a little bit. Many of these men, David didn't even know personally. David wrote, but at my stumbling they rejoiced and gathered. They gathered together against me, wretches whom I did not know, tore at me without ceasing. Worse still, David had shown kindness to some of these men in the past, but they had forgotten his kindness, and now they were at his throat. David was exhausted with dealing with these people. So this is kind of how I felt. I'm exhausted, dealing with all this stuff on the outside. What, I feel helpless. What can I do? What should I do? I'm angry, And he says, contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. That's how the psalm starts. He asked God to shame them, dishonor them, and trap them in their own snares. David trusted that God was going to vindicate him. He worshiped God for caring about the welfare of his servants. So that's kind of a rough outline. So on this page that I handed out, and if you can also follow along in your Bible, but as you follow along, you're going to notice some of the words in the chant. He switches words around a little bit. takes a few liberties on paraphrasing, maybe because he wanted to sing it that way, I don't know. So in this thing I handed out, I've got these little sections, they're kind of themes in each of the areas, so you can kind of be looking at the print in bold and be thinking about that theme as you listen to it. So with that, I'm gonna do this.
And, O Lord, with my contenders, fight those who fight me. Take up your buckler and shield, arise in my defense. Take up the javelin and the spear against those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those who seek my life be shamed and disgraced. Let those who plan evil against me be routed in confusion. Let them be like chaff before the wind. Let the angel of the Lord drive them on. Let their path be slippery and dark. Let the angel of the Lord pursue them. Unprovoked they have hidden a net for me. Unprovoked they have dug a pit for me. Let ruin fall upon them and take them by surprise. Let them be caught in the net they have hidden. Let them fall in their own pit. Then my soul shall rejoice in the Lord and exult in his salvation. All my bones will say, Lord, who is like you? Who rescue the weak from the strong and the poor from the oppressor. Lying witnesses arise, asking me questions I cannot understand. They repay me evil for good. My soul is forlorn. When they were sick, I dressed in sackcloth, afflicted my soul with fasting, and with prayer ever anew in my heart, as for a brother, a friend. I went as though mourning a mother, bowed down with grief. Now that I stumble, they gladly gather. They gather and mock me. I myself do not know them, yet strangers tear at me ceaselessly. They provoke me with mockery on mockery, and gnash their teeth at me. O Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue my life from their ravages, my soul from these lions. Then I will thank you in the great assembly. Amid the mighty throng I will praise you. Do not let my lying foes rejoice over me. Do not let those who hate me without cause wink eyes at each other. For they do not speak of peace, but against the quiet in the land. They conceive deceitful words, and with mouths wide open, they utter their cry against me. Yes, yes, our eyes have seen it. O Lord, you have seen, do not be silent. Lord, do not stand afar off. Awake and stir to my defense, to my cause, O my God and my Lord. Vindicate me, Lord my God, in accord with your justice, and let them not rejoice over me. Do not let them think in their hearts, yes, we have one. Do not let them say, we have destroyed him. Let them be shamed and brought to disgrace, who rejoice at my misfortune. Let them be covered with shame and confusion, who raise themselves against me. Let them exult and be glad, who delight in my deliverance. Let them say without end, great is the Lord who delights in the peace of his servant. Then my tongue shall speak of your justice, and all day long of your praise.
Thanks for being patient through that. I know it's long. So lots of stuff in here to unpack. We probably won't get to unpack all of it today. So what was, I guess, your initial emotional reaction, especially to the beginning and some of the unfiltered anger that seems to be coming from David? What's your initial reaction to that?
David needs a good therapist.
He needs to what?
He needs a good therapist.
Yeah.
I think it's written for today.
Yeah. I mean, I could identify with the anger at the beginning there, and for me personally, I could.
Dumb question, what's a buckler?
Shield.
One of the things I love about the Psalms is there's every human emotion in the 150 of them.
Yeah.
And I often refer clients to find their favorite psalm.
Yeah, I found a ton of raw intensity in it, desperation, kind of, a little bit of helplessness. But I also got to thinking, David's this king, right? I mean, why is David doing this when he could just raise up one of his armies and say, go get him,
I think it's like, stop talking and do something.
Yeah.
Talk,
Right.
and nothing ever happens. Wait, and nothing ever happens.
Right.
The only time something happens is when you do something, and David is saying, look, I'm frustrated, you say you want to do this, you say I should do this, you say I should do that. It happens today. Talk.
Yeah.
And those who benefit from it are those who get the most from it. And those are the very people that could do something, but they just talk, and enjoy what's going on. And David is saying, I'm frustrated. Nothing is happening,
Right.
That's what I'm saying, what I'm seeing.
Well, it's conditional. I'll praise you when you do something.
Yeah, he kinda-
If you deliver me, then I'll.
Right, he kind of
I'll
lead,
multitudes.
he's kind of indicating that, but when you get towards the end, he's like, well, if you do all this,
I got stuck at the verse 20. But they do not speak peace, but against those who are quiet in the land, they devise words of deceit. And I was thinking about our immigration issues and
Right.
trying to get the criminals out. We're trying to stop them,
Right.
S-13, et cetera, and then they arrest people who are just trying to go to work, And
Right.
this is just an indictment.
I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of when, and I'm not sure what happened after this. Was there a war? Did David?
So the context that I read about this was, they don't know exactly which one of his enemies he was writing about. Some people suspect Saul, but they don't actually know for sure. So whether it had a conclusion and he, God intervened for him or not, that's not made clear.
I just, it's so relevant today. And I think if a lot of us are honest, we feel that way.
Yeah,
And, I always sit here wondering, when are folks gonna take up the buckler and whatever and start getting violent?
so do you think this is a call for actual vengeance against an individual, or is this a call for divine vindication? Which, what would you say it is?
I would say the latter. I don't think he's advocating go out and slay your
Right.
neighbor or anything like that.
Right. When I first read it, I was thinking, well, what happened to love your enemies? What happened? I'm thinking, wait a minute, he's asking God to do harm to his enemies. So that doesn't seem to jive.
But that doesn't come till the New Testament.
Right.
He really sounds depressed, though. It's almost nihilistic. He sounds like he's almost given up on God, and I can identify with that. I think in today's environment, it's not so much who the enemies are, it is, where is God when you need him the most? Or she, where is she? Where is she in our affairs? It's time to step in,
Mike, the counter to that would be, the depth of this. I mean, the depth that David went into, the specificity of it, the clarity of it, the persistence of it seems almost full of rich faith that we exercise today via the Spirit, right? It would be like, if I'm really in touch with, if I really am feeling the Spirit communicate to me, because I'm meditating and I'm asking these questions, I'm this angry, I'm this open with God. I think that that reflects a huge amount of faith. I think David, and then that, I think then the next question is okay, how am I to be used?
Right.
And then strengthen me so I can do that. Because like Paul said, we talked about last week, right? Is this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get tired and scared, and I'm gonna get weak, and I'm gonna tremble.
Right.
And maybe we all yearn to be in our core, maybe we all yearn to be on the front line of something that creates more justice, because the Spirit of God has moved us.
Yeah.
And yearning is the disappointment.
Right.
Yeah, there's an intimacy in this between David and God, and an honesty. So often, you've heard of, I was spending years in Wisconsin, there was a thing called Wisconsin nice, and Minnesota nice, and maybe Texas has a little bit of that going on, I don't know, but part of the, and those who are therapists can correct me, but it seems to me part of the therapy circle is to first be honest with what's really going on. And David or whoever it was, the source here is that. But it ends, this psalm ends in faith. Oh, great, O Lord, etc. So I think there's just a lot of good old fashioned, raw, Jewish honesty kind of going on. And he's not afraid to speak to God this way. The patriarchs were famous for shaking the fist at God, which from a Christian perspective feels kind of funny to us, I think, but they happen all the time in the scriptures.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, I hear David being a very healthy spiritual person. He's carrying all of his anguish in his left hand, presents it to God, and all his faith in his right hand, presents it to God. Because ultimately he knows that there is not a human solution to what he's facing. As much as he wants God to change him, I mean, the actor in this song is God. So God's gonna work out the salvation. God needs to intervene, and so it's striking as all the power he had as a leader, it wasn't enough. And it's kind of a recipe for us, how do we go forward with our anguish and our faith? You know, we
Right.
can't, you know, the balance can't get off, you know, we can't be pie in the sky full of faith, you know?
Right.
With that, and we also can't get sunk in despair without hope. And so, it's a shame we don't use this song more often.
Well, I think Vanessa was talking about, well, this is the Old Testament, not the New, but I think in as opposed to this, I think the New Testament is more of a call to action. Loving
Call to
people,
love, yeah.
laying
definitely.
your life down for people. You don't hear that here.
A little bit of it, when
A little bit.
when he's being kind to his enemies,
Yeah.
that kind
But
of goes
I
with
think
that.
there's more call to action for us from Jesus.
Right.
So today, should we be stepping in, should we be asking God to step in? And if we do, and he doesn't do anything, and our nation turns into a fascist state, then what's this class gonna say about God?
It's a valid question. Yes.
Well, hold on, I wanna say, one. always
I
have
knew
to-
you would
always have to-
respond. I
You
did.
stick up for God in this class. One, I just wanna say, we lose sight of the fact that prayer is action. It's powerful action. When we're not praying, we're not acting. This is an action prayer from the beginning to the end. It starts in faith, it ends in faith. I will confess, I pray like this. Every day, if you were sitting at my table at dinner, I will pray against the administration. I will pray that God brings that to ruin. I will also get my butt out of my chair and go march in the street. Gotta do both. You have to do both. If you're marching in the street and you're not praying, you're not marching in power. You gotta have the power. The power comes from prayer. David could have slayed his enemies, but this isn't about being in a war. This is him being in political battle. And it was not a good look to slay your enemies in political battle. Okay. 2, God is doing things. Look up. Minnesota's a win. That's a win. And if you can't see God in that, you're not looking hard enough. How will God, if God does nothing, God is doing a lot. He is. But it requires people to do stuff.
It works through individuals.
People.
Yeah, people.
People. God is not gonna come out of heaven and,
Poof.
Jesus riding on a horse and, take down me. That's not gonna happen. That's the other crowd that thinks that's gonna happen. God is going to work in our country through people like us who have a different vision of God than people who think this is great. That's how he's going to do it. That's how he is doing it. That's how she is doing it. This God who is bigger than we can understand is able to do things that we ask for, but we do have to ask for. He's asking. And he's a powerful man who's asking.
So what you're saying is there's no loss. See, how long does it take for God to respond? 1,000 years? It looks like he's doing nothing. 500 years? How many people have to die in the process? Is there a time when there's a call to arms to say, look, we've got to face this? God has said, you got to do something. It's just, how do you see him working? When does it happen? Show me the example. If you assume that he's always right, he's always showing up, all right, so there's never a loss. I don't know, it has to do with your perspective. My perspective is quite different. I just, I just don't see it the way a lot of people see it. I think you have to get off just like you're saying, get out, you can pray, but don't just rely on that. Do what you have to do.
I don't see this,
I agree with what's being said, but this is a personal prayer. He's saying they're doing this to me. And what I don't see in this prayer is not my will, but nonetheless, whatever you want. So I don't see this as a model of prayer. It's kind of an example of maybe a little overconfidence that God's gonna do something for me. Whether I see it or not. It's that kind of a prayer, but I don't pray this way. And I really don't like looking at this as if it is anything more than his relationship to God and how he thinks God owes him something. And it's transactional in the end. So I kind of draw a line. I agree with what's being said, but I don't think this is the example of what should be said.
I would suggest that it's not healthy to pit God's direct intervention against our intervention. That good theology assumes that when we pray for the intervention of God, that includes in and through us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We see that much more fully in the New Testament than we saw in the Old Testament. But if you always keep in mind that God's ultimate goal is the transformation of the human soul to become like God, then that requires human participation in the mind of God and human ethical behavior. So I totally agree. So I don't want to make the fallacy of using worship as a replacement for action. Evangelicals have done that for a very long time. So I think they're hand in glove. I think you're exactly right. I mean, we need Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. We needed both of them. That's, for some people, that's scandalous to say, but or maybe not. We needed both of them.
Well, love doesn't preclude honesty. I mean, I think the New Testament
requires it.
I think the New Testament was full of Jesus's love, and yet he stands up in the middle of a public square and looks at folks and says, "You brood of vipers, you hypocrites, you're like whitewashed tombs, you're dead on the inside." And I think we have to be, not having a perfect mind of God, I think we have to be careful when we call out other people, but I think we're called to be honest, and I will say that's a flaw of mine, because I wanna get along with everybody. I don't wanna, so I kind of draw back into that, I need to love and be quiet and everything, and I think there's times in history when I'm disappointed with myself, because I think I need to call out injustice more than I do.
Yeah, I would say.
My grandmother used to say that God helps those who help themselves, and she raised 7 children. Her husband died at 25 of pneumonia. They lived in a dugout in New Mexico, and terrible living conditions, but she prayed constantly, but she also worked. She was a woman of action. She ended up getting the royalty rights to land was very valuable, and they got benefits on. But I think the point is he's saying, kind of as I read it, Lord, work your way, but let me know what you want me to do. And but I don't think we can ever rely. I agree with you. I don't think we can ever ultimately rely on our faith. And that's what Martin Luther King said in the letter from Birmingham jail. He was writing to Baptist preachers, and he was saying, get off your butts and do something. He said, you talked a good game, and you talked and talked and talked, but now it's time to do something. And I think that we have got to take the bull by the horns as Christians.
I agree. I see that as.
That means becoming militaristic even. Now, I've thought too about what happens if somebody just loses it and brings an AR-15 and starts mowing down ICE people. Which in my mind, I fantasize about. And probably everybody has. We're tired of the dooms and the unnecessary violence, etc. But that's exactly what Trump wants. He wants to create civil unrest, so you can invoke the Insurrection Act. And then he can, if necessary, maybe another step, but he can declare martial law. And so Kings was right when he advocated, you know, that nonviolence was the most important thing, never hit back.
Right, yeah.
In a sense.
One of the lessons I extracted from some of the commentary I read was, love your enemies with integrity. So with integrity, you know, it means you're not gonna go after them. You're gonna still treat them with kindness, you know, and you're not gonna become their best friend probably, but when you are voicing your opinions, protesting, whatever actions you're taking, you're gonna still act with integrity and love and allow God to work through you, as you know, and trusting that at the same time, while you're acting with kindness and integrity, that God's judgment will prevail, and you know, the enemies will be eventually vanquished, you know. Some other things I read on this is it's I guess more the forest for the trees. You know, God sees the forest more than the trees. So all these individuals that, you know, we think about when we think about our enemies, you know, like this politician or that guy, you know, it's a bigger problem than that. I think there's systems that need to be addressed are bigger problems more than the individual person. I agree that some of the people we have in our leadership right now are igniting a lot of the evil, or magnifying it more than it had been in the past, but I still think there's systems that we could help dismantle with God's help, trust, prayer, action through prayer, action through our actions. That's kind of my take on it.
So obviously I had a completely different modern analog to this, because everybody's trying to take this old scripture and apply it to the current world, and what I was thinking about was a soldier in Ukraine, a Ukrainian soldier who was being basically facing the Russian oppressors. So I mean that's what I was thinking. This would be an appropriate prayer in that context, and any kind of any type of combat mission that people are involved with. It's a just combat mission. So I just wanted to put that on the table, that's kind of the context I would find this useful. I had a little bit hard time applying it to my personal context. I mean, I didn't go to Minnesota. I didn't think about that context when I was just listening to it. I was thinking about a battle in that context.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there as.
Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
I agree with all of that. What keeps entering my head is this thing that I grew up with. Yes, God loves us. Yes, He can and does intervene. But she also allows us to experience the consequences of our actions. And so sometimes I feel, and yeah, I get so riled up about, and I translate everything into what's happening in this country. And I think as a wealthy white woman, I fall into this habit of, oh gosh, it was clicking along pretty good and we were the good guys until 2016. But you know, we were not at all. And our country began doing horrible, horrible things to people that were already here. And then we moved on to do horrible things to people we shipped over in boats. And if we look at and we built our country on doing horrible things.
Yeah.
And so sitting around and saying, oh God, now it's kind of bad. Why don't you do something?
Right.
I don't know how to pray. Cause yeah, I'm upset, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what to do with that. I just throw that out there.
Mike,
Go ahead, Alan.
I've got a hopeful thought. I think I can dovetail it into what Al said earlier. Look up. Minnesota was a win. And one thing I've noticed is that we citizens are standing up, pushing back in grand juries. The administration is being shut down by grand juries.
Regular fear for lawyers.
Yay! Let's hear it for people on grand juries who aren't lawyers. I ain't doing that.
A lawyer has to present the case.
Having been on a grand jury, they will tell the lawyers where to go.
Good insights, really good insights.
So,
You know, we
do
talk
one
about
more.
this issue, let's go to global warming right now. Which we aren't doing.
Sure.
Maybe 5 minutes later. Which we aren't doing anything about.
Scripture covers a lot.
Anything about.
Because Steve's
And, you know, we have responsible there. And, you know, religion is so, there are churches around, all around Dallas today are praying for the other side of this, to their God. And we're supposedly praying to the same God. I think God can be a very good therapist and help us think through things. But, and I think she created the universe. I don't necessarily think she has her hands on the wheel all the time and in steering us. I think that's up to us. And I think we've got to listen to God and have faith in God and what He tells us. But it's more like, to me, it's more like going to a really good therapist.
So there's a theory or a way of approaching therapy called internal family systems. I've talked about it before, but one of the things it talks about is the self energy, which is courageous and calm and confident and connected. And when a person is in that self, in that flow, then amazing things happen. And one of the things about the connection is it's connected to that which is greater than all of us. And so what I hear you talking about, you know, it's not that we need to sit back and pray and wait for God to do something. It's that when we get in that sense of flow, then power and amazing things can happen. And my prayer is that those who don't see will somehow be close to someone who does and find that way to get into that courageous space, because that's where the power is. And self is not going to impose and force, but self is accessible when we come to it. And that's what prayer is about, is kneeling and coming to that place. And when you get still and you get quiet, often the universe, God, energy, whatever you want to call it, speaks. And then we find what we're supposed to do.
Well, there's a great book called The Cost of Discipleship by Bonhoeffer. If you want to do something, if you want to see how woefully inadequate we are as Christians, see what he says Jesus expects us to do. And, you know, I read the book and then quickly and turned down some pages, but I got really depressed after reading the book, because you know, what Jesus says in the red letter words is a lot of stuff that I never do. And I can't speak for y'all, but and I don't hear preachers advocating. Some of it you know, requires ultimate sacrifice, personal sacrifice that we don't make. And so I go back to, you know, Martin Luther King's his invocation of peaceful nonviolence. He was really the only man in modern history who ever applied it successfully. I mean, we talked about it, but during World War II, nobody said, well, you know, all we got to do is be peacefully nonviolent and Hitler will do the right thing. Well, Chamberlain said it and he ended up as the, you know, the foil of history. So there's a lot of stuff we don't do that Jesus said to do, and if we did, I'm wondering if, you know, we would get in that place that you're talking about.
Can I tell you what I'm taking out today?
Sure.
I'm taking out of your, what Doug and Ron referred to, and I'm thinking about if this prayer was prayed by an African American or a Palestinian in Gaza who was destroyed by American, whose house and family were destroyed by American bombs. If I were a Native American who'd been oppressed and his whole family been oppressed, and I'm just thinking about in what ways am I the oppressor?
Right.
And that's what I'm gonna take out.
Very good point. Great discussion. I knew you guys would love this topic. So just real quick before we go, I wanted to just share another book. This is a book I'm reading, Richard Rohr book. Really good. I'm gonna give 3 talks on it in October. But if you wanna go, there's free podcasts you can go listen to chapter by chapter if you don't wanna buy the book. But it's called The Tears of Things, Prophetic Wisdom for an Age of Outrage. It's by Richard Rohr. It's probably his last book. It just came out last year, but really good stuff. Fits the current times. Thank you all again.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.